Nana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Prabhu Pada Jaya Prabhu Pada Jaya Prabhu Pada Jaya Prabhu Pada Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Narayanam Namaskritya. Narayanam Namaskritya. Naram Chaiva Narottama. Naram Chaiva Narottama. Devem Saraswatim Vyasa. Devem Saraswatim Vyasa. Adonayam Mudiraye. Adonayam Mudiraye. Rasta Preshu Bhadreshu. Rasta Preshu Bhadreshu. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavata Uttama Shloke. Bhagavata Uttama Shloke. Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. Chapter 1, chapter 14. We're going from verse 25 to 25. Oh, sorry, never mind. Yeah. Wait. 22. Yeah. So yeah, it was really nice class for Shamli yesterday, and we're covering about how Yudhishthira Maharaj is speaking to Bhima, seeing all these various she's seeing all these various omens, bad omens that are happening. One thing, I think one of the omens that were happening was that his left side was quivering. On the left side, his hand was quivering. And I was thinking in the Ramayana, the same thing happened when Sita was kidnapped. The same thing happened to Lord Ram. His left eye was twitching, so he knew something was gone wrong. So they say for the men, left side twitches, it's bad. For the women, if the right side twitches, it's bad. So just so you know. So yeah, for Yudhishthira Maharaj, so he was seeing all these omens, and a lot of these omens here were a sign of Kali Yuga starting, and a sign of Kali Yuga starting meant that Krishna has left the planet, because Krishna was holding it, for some time. Krishna was still here, and while Krishna was there, Kali had no way to enter in. So he was till he was there, Kali didn't enter, but as soon as he left, Kali entered. And so, at this point, and also, Yudhishthira Maharaj had been given a hint by Narada Muni in the previous chapter, when Dhritarashtra and his wife Gandhari, they left for the forest. And Narada Muni appeared, and he told them how they had left for the mountains, and they were performing penances and went back to God. And so, in those series of verses, he kind of slid it in that, and Krishna also, Krishna is basically finishing up his pastimes. He came here to support the demigods and get rid of the earth, all these various armies that there were existing and were burdening Mother Earth. And so he kind of slid in there. And he told them that in that verse that, and then when he leaves, it'll be time for you to also basically or at least quit the service of running the kingdom. So he already had that hint, and so we'll see in these verses how, in a sense, Yudhishthira is, it's like when you have an inkling about something, and then it starts happening, a part of you, part of me, like kind of like, no, wait, no, like, can't be happening, and the Bhagavatam, oftentimes, sometimes it can be very cut and dry. It can come across as cut and dry, like, well, you're not his body, spirit, soul, go back to God and do service. But actually, the Bhagavatam, there's a lot of emotions, and we see that in the Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna, when he had to basically kill the other, most of his family, actually, because in the end it was just him and the brothers, 5 brothers, and so he had to fight against the rest of his family. He was having a panic attack. And so here also we see there's so many emotions. And Krishna consciousness doesn't mean a lack of emotions. It just means emotions that are dovetailed with Krishna's service. So there'll always be emotion. There'll always be sentiment. One time I remember asking Advaita Maharaj, I was like, Maharaj, I don't remember the way I phrased it, but I remember his answer, which is more important. But I remember asking something to the extent like, what about sentiments in Krishna consciousness? And he said, well, and I think a part of me was feeling like, oh, I shouldn't have so many sentiments, in Krishna consciousness. Just do it. Just do it. Do your job, do your service, and that's it. And so I think I wanted to hear from him, like, yeah, you should just do your prescribed things, chapa and service, and that's it, and read whatever, and that's it. But actually, what he said sentiments are good. They should be used in Krishna service. And he said, if you have sentiments for Krishna, if you have sentiments in Krishna consciousness, that's good. And it's true. It's actually impersonal to think about that there will be no sentiments. There will always be sentiments. And the question is, based on the sentiments, do we act in a Krishna conscious manner? That's the key thing. And are those sentiments, dovetailed towards Krishna? Are they connected with Krishna? And so there'll always be sentiments. So we'll see in these verses how Yudhishthira Maharaj is asking with a lot of sentiment these questions. He's going to be asking about, well, what about the various people in the Yadu dynasty from Krishna's family? What about this person? What about that person? So there's a lot of emotion. Let's see, which verse was 22, right? Do you want to start with verse 22? So just picture Yudhishthira Maharaj, just picture him saying these things. Yudhishthira Maharaj is he's actually a really nice person who's always upheld what is right, what is wrong. He's always tried to do the right thing, and he loves Krishna. He's as a friend also, as a cousin, actually. Technically we're cousins. So they have this familial relationship, and he loves them. He loves Krishna. He loves this. Just think of your cousins. You love your cousins. You love that side of the family, and they've grown up together, and of course they've fought together and so forth. Krishna has supported them. Krishna is somebody who has saved you several times from death. So now he's thinking like, oh no, he's gone. Even if Krishna wasn't God, even if that wasn't the case, still somebody like that would be so dear to you. So of course, Krishna is the most attractive person. So what to speak of? Yeah. All right, go ahead. So verse 22.
O Brahmana
Shanaka.
While Maharaj Yudhishthira, observing the inauspicious signs on the earth at that time, was thus thinking to himself, Arjuna came back from the city of the Yadus.
When he bowed at his feet, the king saw that his dejection was unprecedented. His head was down, and tears glided from his lotus eyes.
Seeing Arjuna pale due to heartfelt anxieties, the king, remembering the indications of the sage Narada, graciously made so friends.
Maharaj Yudhisthira said, "My dear brother, please tell me whether our friends and relatives, such as Madhu, Bhoja, Dasarha, Arha, Satvata, Andaka, and the members of the Yadu family, are all passing their days in happiness."
It is my respectable grandfather, Sure Sain, in a happy mood, and are my material uncle, Vasudev, his younger brothers, all doing well?
His 7 wives, headed by Devaki, are all sisters, and they and their sons and daughters-in-law all happy?
Partly Hussein, whose son was the mischievous Kamsa, and his younger brothers still living. Aridika and his son, Uthavarma, happy. Are Apura, Jayanta, Dada, Sarva, and Satruji all happy. How is Balaram, personality of Godhead, and protecting things?
How is Arjuna? The great general of Krishna family? Is he happy in his leader with the new extension of the personality of God? Very well.
Are all the chieftains sons of Lord Krishna, such as Sushena, Charudeshna, Samba, the son of Jambavati, and Rishabha, along with their sons, all doing well?
Also, Shrutadeva, Uddhava, and others, Nanda, Sunanda, and other leaders of liberated souls who are constant companions of the Lord are protected by Lord Balaram and Krishna. Are they all doing well in their respective functions? Do they, who are all eternally bound in friendship with us, remember our welfare?
It is Lord Krishna, the supreme personality of Godhead, who gives pleasure to the cows. The senses in the Brahmanas, who is very affectionate towards his devotees, enjoying the pious assembly at Dwarkapuri, surrounded by friends.
Verse 34. Bhagavanapi Govindo Brahmanya Bhaktavatsalaha Kachit Pure Sudharmaya Sukamaste Suridrita Bhagavanapi Govindo Brahmanya Bhaktavatsalaha Kachit Pure Sudharmaya Sukamaste Suridrita Bhagavanapi Govindo Brahmanya Bhaktavatsalaha Kachit Pure Sudharmaya Sukamaste Suridrita Bhagavanapi Govindo Brahmanya Bhaktavatsalaha Kachit Pure Sudharmaya Sukamaste Suridrita Bhagavanapi Govindo Sudharmaya Sukamaste Suridrita Bhagavanapi Govindo Brahmanya Bhaktavatsalaha Kachit Pure Sudharmaya Sukamaste Suridrita Bhagavanapi Govindo Brahmanya Bhaktavatsalaha Kachit Pure Sudharmaya Sukamaste Suridrita do it together. Bhagavan, the Vaishnava God, Krishna, Abhi, Govinda, Manu, lemons, cows, and says, Brahmanya, devoted to the devotees, Bhaktavatsalaha, affectionate to the devotees, Kachet, whether pure, self joy. Surit Vita, some friends. Yes, pure. I saw pure, I was like, wait, what? That's English. That's pure in Dwarka Puri. Alright, let's do the translation together. Is Lord Krishna the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who gives pleasure to the cows, senses, and the Brahmanas, who is very affectionate towards his devotees, enjoying the pious assembly at Dwarka Puri, the son of friends. Alright, I'd like to read the puppet.
Here, in this particular verse, the Lord is described as Bhagavan, Govinda, Brahmanya, and Bhaktavatsala. He is Bhagavan Swayam, or the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, full with all opulences, all power, all knowledge, all beauty, all fame, and all renunciation. No one is equal to or greater than him. He is Govinda because he is the pleasure of the cows and the senses. Those who have purified their senses by the devotional service of the Lord can render unto him real service and thereby derive transcendental pleasure out of such purified senses. Only the impure, conditioned living beings cannot derive any pleasure from the senses. But being illusioned by false pleasures of the senses, he becomes servant of the senses. Therefore, we need his protection for our own interests. The Lord is the protector of the cows and the Brahminical culture. A society devoid of cow protection and Brahminical culture is not under the direct protection of the Lord, just as the prisoners in the jails are not under the protection of the king, but under the protection of a severe agent of the king. Without cow protection and cultivation of Brahminical qualities in human society, at least for a section of the members of society, no human civilization can prosper at any length. By Brahminical culture, the development of the dormant qualities of goodness, namely truthfulness, equanimity, sense control, forbearance, simplicity, general knowledge, transcendental knowledge, and firm faith in Vedic wisdom, one can become a Brahmana and thus see the Lord as he is. After surpassing the Brahminical perfection, one has to become a devotee of the Lord, so that his loving affection in the form of proprietor, master, friend, son, and lover can be transcendentally achieved. The stage of a devotee, which attracts the transcendental affection of the Lord, does not develop unless one has developed the qualities of a Brahmana, as above mentioned. The Lord is inclined to a Brahmana of quality and not of false prestige. Those who are less than a Brahmana by qualification cannot establish any relationship with the Lord, just as fire cannot be kindled from the raw earth unless there is wood. Although there is a relation between wood and the earth, since the Lord is all perfect in himself, there could not be any question of his welfare, and Maharaj Yudhishthira refrained from asking this question. He simply inquired about his residential palace, Dwarka Puri, where pious men assemble. The Lord stays only where pious men assemble and takes pleasure in their glorifying the supreme truth. Maharaj Yudhishthira was anxious to know about the pious men and their pious acts in the city of Dwarka.
So yeah, Maharaj Yudhishthira also, oftentimes people of culture, they ask questions in a very nuanced manner. Sometimes they're not just blunt and direct. They're not just like, did he? He's not like, did he die? He's asking, what's going on with his family and so forth. And you see that often also in this world. Because people often sometimes ask questions that are, so you have to read between the lines. So Maharaj Yudhishthira, and of course, as Prabhupada is pointing out, he knows that Krishna, since the Lord is all perfect in himself, there could not be any question of his welfare. And Maharaj Yudhishthira refrained from asking this question. He simply inquired about the residential place, Dwarka, where pious men assembled. He says, asking about all the pious people that are there, all basically the Yadu dynasty. So yeah, just going back to Krishna leaving the planet, and Yudhishthira Maharaj basically, it's like, he's starting to realize that that's what's happening. And so he's asking these questions. And I was thinking about, it made me think about the stages of grief, the 5 stages of grief. And you remember what the first one is? Denial. And then what's the next one? Denial. Anger, sorry. Denial, anger, bargaining, next one, and then depression, and then finally this acceptance. And so these 5 stages of grief, of course, it comes up when somebody leaves their body, when a family member leaves their body, that comes up, these various phases. But it also comes up in our regular life as well, when we're going through something, or we're losing not necessarily a person, but losing, say, or just transitioning from one thing to another and so forth. So it happens. And Shamla was mentioning Bhaktivedanta Maharaj's book yesterday, Die Before Dying. It's a really good book, actually, when all of you read it. And it's true, as Krishna points out in the Bhagavad Gita, everything is so succinct. Krishna says how one transitions from one body, from boyhood to youthhood to adult and so forth, and then to the next body. And when we read it, like, yeah, they are not the verses. But then when we actually go through it, we're like, oh, this is what it means to really process it and to really let go. And so that's the nature of this world. And even when Krishna was here personally, it was still a world of impermanence. And we see that, he was in Vrindavan, and then he left, and all the, was mentioning, it's such a good class. I keep thinking of all the points he made, and all the Vrajvasis were just devastated, and they were just lamenting when Uddhava went back to Vrindavan. It was described that the residents of Vrindavan were just remembering Krishna and singing his glories and talking about him. And it described that King Maharaj Nanda, they had cried so much. Maharaj Nanda showed that cried so much that they're almost blind out of crying. That's the description given. And yeah, everybody was just missing Krishna. So even in Vrindavan, it's called the Bhoma Vrindavan in this world, there was impermanence in the sense that Krishna left, and then they had to process that, they had to deal with it. So yeah, this world is a world of impermanence. And so the bottom line is that it's not our final destination. And that's why Prabhupada pushes so much. He talks about it so many times, that people are so dependent on the things of this world, but actually it's an impermanent world. And sometimes, devotees are accused of, why you gotta talk about it like this? You gotta deal with the problems that are there in this world and so forth. And that's good. Yeah, we should, of course, try to help people as much as we can, spread Krishna consciousness and, be there for people and so forth. And and at the same time, the way we help people is to remind them that actually this is not your final destination, And there's a lot of there's a lot of empowerment in that. Yeah, there's a lot of empowerment in that realization that, yeah, this is a journey, and we are here for some time, and then there'll be a transition. And even in this one life, there's so much transition. Like just going from elementary to middle school can be a lot of transition for some little kids, and then going to high school, going to college, going to a different city and country. I remember when I came here, I was a little 18-year-old, and it's like this whole new country, and I was my first week in the dorm. I was just sitting there, hearing everybody talk in English, and I was like, oh my God, nobody speaks my language here. Where am I? So it was like a whole process. Luckily, I found Krishna House in my second week, so that was good. Yeah, I was looking for a bookstore actually, going that way, but then I saw the sign Northwest 14th Street, and I remembered, we got a devotees had sent out an email saying that we have a Friday program. So I saw the sign Northwest 14th Street. I was like, that's where the Krishna House is. And I was like, oh, it's Friday. It's 6:30. Let me go to the program instead of going to the bookstore. As I ended up finding Krishna House. I was expecting like a temple, but this is a house. Anyway, so that was my good fortune to find Krishna House. But yeah, but just a side note, but they had simply sent an email on some group, and I happened to be in it. So you never know. Any effort you make in preaching, you never know how it will touch somebody and change their lives. So yeah, anything you can get out there, books, emails, flyers. All right, going back to our class. But yeah, this world is a world of impermanence, and there's two ways to look at it. One is which most people look at it. I mean, they have processes, they're normally very sad about it. People are really attached to the way things are, and for good reason. They're used to certain thing, they're used to a certain person, or they're used to a certain lifestyle. And once that's gone, it's just shocking to the whole system. So it's a lot for people to process. And many people just are never able to process because they just don't have anything higher and permanent to hang on to. And so this world, you can look at it and be like totally devastated, right? And of course, there's wars that happen. I mean, we're lucky to be in a stable country, stable place, but there are countries where there's wars. Your house is just bombed, and you lose family members. It's just so jarring to think about it. All of a sudden, in a moment, all of a sudden you might lose your entire house. Everything you have basically can be just gone. So it's so impermanent, and sometimes, in those situations, that's when people can really depend on God, because basically there's nothing else left. And so yeah, there'll always be impermanence. There'll always be changes. So either we can be totally aggrieved about it, and it's okay to process things, of course. Maharaj Yudhishthira also, he's asking questions, he's processing now. And but then there's a time after that where it's like, all right, then we see, okay, what can we really depend on? What is permanent in my life? What are the many things? And everything is impermanent in this life except for Krishna. And the same principle can be applied even to devotees and our guru in our life, where it can be, if we are only dependent on them as on a superficial level, then it can seem permanent, because sooner or later, devotees we know might not be here. Or of course, when Prabhupada left the planet, it was like, it was very devastating for everybody. So there's that impermanence also, where the spiritual master leaves the planet and so forth. And whenever an acharya leaves, it's really heartbreaking for the disciples and the followers. But the permanence is the principle. The permanent principle is always there. It's in the Bhagavatam. That's why there's the book Bhagavat and the Persian Bhagavat. The Persian Bhagavat and the book are always there in the form of instructions. When Narottam Das Thakur, who was two generations away from Lord Chaitanya, he had heard about Lord Chaitanya growing up. He had heard from this one saint who would come and visit his town and would just tell him stories about Lord Chaitanya. So he had this love for this person who he grew up hearing about. And he thought, when I grow up, I'm going to go meet this person in person. And back then there was no, you can see Lord Chaitanya on Facebook Live or what else, TikTok. And so he heard these stories, and he was like, I'm going to go see him. And he started going to Vrindavan. And as he kept going, and he also heard about Lord Chaitanya and other of his disciples and associates. But as he kept going, he kept hearing, oh, this person left the planet. This person left the planet. Finally, Lord Chaitanya's left the planet. Like, he was so devastated. But then, he took shelter of Lokanath Goswami, took shelter of him as a disciple. And that permanence of that principle of the spiritual master is always there. It will always be there. And Prabhupada made that point also. I think somebody asked him when Prabhupada was leaving his body. Someone asked him, what will happen once you leave the planet. In India, the system was that Acharya appoints the next Acharya. It's kind of like inheritance. You know, the next Acharya inherits the property, everything. That was the system back then. Still is, actually, in India. That's why people fight over who's the next Acharya in other organizations. And so Prabhupada said, you know, as long, what did Prabhupada say exactly? You know, remember, I think he just said, as long as my followers are, you know, listening, my instructions are there, my books are there. So Prabhupada is alive, you know, the spiritual master is alive in his instructions. And it's a very permanent thing. When Bhaktisiddhanta left the planet and Prabhupada was on his own, a 69-year-old man with $7, you know, which I think, oh no, he had it in rupees. He had 40 rupees, which was the equivalent to $7. So basically no money. He only had a trunk of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the first canto. That was his wealth that he was carrying. But he had his instructions of the spiritual master. So that's what's permanent in this world, the instructions of the Bhagavatam and the instruction of the spiritual master and the previous acharyas. And that is what we can really take solace in. And so there are times of transitions where, you know, one can really take shelter of those permanent things. You have devotees, their instructions, and so forth. So, you know, Maharaj Yudhishthira, great Mahajans like Maharaj Yudhishthira, they take shelter in that. Okay, you know, because soon we'll see, not to give too many spoilers. You know, soon we'll see he's going to renounce the kingdom and so forth. The Pandavas are going to leave, and so for him, the permanent thing is Krishna, and that's it. Krishna's not here, all right, you know, our duty is done. Because also, yeah, he understands that the duty of his duty and the Pandavas, their duty was to help Krishna get rid of the planet of all these various armies. And I think of how in today's age, all these countries, they have trillion-dollar budgets for the defense budgets. And I was just thinking how, like, oh yeah, it's kind of similar, yeah, having these huge budgets, huge armies, and so forth. So when that's the case, it's always wars. It's always the material nature. The nature is that there's just, as what's the word, culling, just chops. Sorry to be intense, but yeah, that's the nature of this world. It's always impermanent. But the beauty is, yeah, we can take shelter in Krishna's instructions. That's the permanent thing, and that's what will really help people. I remember years ago in Syria, I think I mentioned this before. There was this video, these two little kids, they were Muslims, and they were picking like little crumbs of bread and eating it because there was no food. And but while they were doing it, they were like, "Thanks Allah, we have food. Thank you for providing." And I was like, "Oh my God, like, that's really Krishna conscious." You know? Yeah, this is these little kids, and it was just so mind blowing that even in that situation, they were able to have gratitude. They're able to see Krishna and whatever he was providing. And yeah, the video was quite grim actually. When I say crumbs of bread, it was like crumbs of bread in the dirt. They're taking dirt off the crumbs of bread. But the beauty was, that was the beauty, they were remembering God. It's really impressive actually. It really touched my heart. Wow, so God conscious. And so for us also, as there's changes and the seasons change, the years change, stages of life change, and of course finally when death comes. So this life is a preparation. It's training grounds. It's like that movie Rocky. Actually, I haven't seen it. So you can think of life like that. Or one of those movies, I don't know, it was Rocky or something else, I forget. But it's training. The whole life is really training, you know. And then there's the final test, death. But the thing is, as we go through this life, as we go through these phases, if we keep practicing Krishna consciousness, if we keep chanting our japa, if we keep, you know, doing devotional service, keep focusing on it. And it's all right, you know, but as we go through life, we'll waver up and down. Of course they happen, but it's just training so that when that final moment comes, you can be like, all right, this is the final transition from this body to next. And let me remember Krishna. Let me focus on the one thing that matters. Mahatma Prabhu, we went on a walk once on Sadhu Sangha last year or 22 years ago. And we were walking and, you know, and he stopped and he turned around, he said, just think like you were chanting at the time of your death. And he said, what do you want to be thinking? Do you want to be thinking like, oh, how am I going to make more money or whatever it is, you know? You just imagine, like, you know, you're leaving, like he said, what will matter to you at that time? So just think of it and then do that now. Like you're going to leave your body. You know, that this is it. This is my last day on earth. And so chant very intentionally with all the attention you can muster. And it's okay for our minds to wander, it's fine. You just have to try to bring it back. And that's what, the 10 offenses in the end, it says, what's the last paragraph? It says, I talked about intent, what was it? Inattentive while chanting, right? And so Ravindra Surapur talks about it. Being inattentive doesn't necessarily mean that the mind won't wander, it will wander. Being attentive means trying to bring it back. So as long as we try to bring it back, it's fine. We are being attentive. And of course, as we progress more and more, the mind will settle down, hopefully, after some years. but yeah, so there's a lot of impermanence in this world, a lot of changes happen. And but the beauty of it is that we have the Bhagavatam, we have Krishna, we have Prabhupada, and his instructions to really hold on to and make that the center of our lives. And yeah, and if people really do that, and you see people out there, not necessarily devotees, but even like religious people who are really able to put their stock in God, their faith in God, and they are able to deal with life's problems in a very more of goodness or pious or whatever spiritual way, versus people who might be just, and it's only natural for them to be totally lost if they have no idea about what are the real permanent things in this world. And they'll be like, what do I do? Everything I thought that was permanent is just gone. It's just gone, it can be gone. So yeah, Maharaj Yudhishthira and the Pandavas, they have Krishna's instructions. And we'll see how they'll apply those instructions. Any thoughts or comments on this part? That's good.
It reminds me of the disciples course that I recently just took, and how they talk about Vapu and Vani. Like there's the teaching, and then there's the form. And so, though the form of our spiritual master can waver and wane and disappear, isn't there also, the form also never leaves. Like we worship Prabhupada every day.
Yeah, of course.
And we worship Krishna and Archa Vigraha. Could you speak a little bit more on like the permanence of Vapu?
Of the Vapu. Yeah, in that sense, yeah, and the deity, yeah, it's also the Archa incarnation of God and the special master. They're there, and it depends on our vision. If we are able to really see if they're there as the deity or as the picture even and so forth. So yeah, so in that sense, yeah, Vapu is there. It's still, it depends on our vision. And the more we are able to apply the Vani, the instructions, the more we'll feel a physical presence too in the form of the deity. So, any thoughts on that question? Michael, jump in.
Bhattacharya speaking about it, he said that one of the advantages of Krishna consciousness compared to any other tradition is our object is all attractive. In the other tradition, you go, you ask, who's God, describing God there. It's like, there's somebody in the sky, probably with a beard, sitting judging you. Or there is just no idea at all. So he said, advantages, our object of our meditation is all attractive. It's a saving grace for us. So in the Vapu, it's the same sense.
So it's
object of our meditation is all attractive. Hence, it's making our practice a lot easier because our mind can naturally flow there once it's purified.
Yeah, and that's the representative of Krishna. Special master is also has so many qualities, very attractive. Any other thoughts?
So you're speaking about like the impermanence of this world and how it's temporary, and you brought up this point of these Muslim children that are eating crumbs of bread, and to someone that doesn't know that this world is temporary, a video like that could be very personal, and they could take it very personally, like we have to do something about this. So my question could be, how can we acknowledge our feelings about like the things that are happening in this world?
Yeah.
How can we acknowledge our feelings about it, knowing that like this place is temporary? How do we acknowledge our feelings so that we can also help other people acknowledge their feelings about it as well? How can we start with that? Like,
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. What I gather is like, yeah, we should not just not pay attention to those things. Yeah, people do so many things, and it is right, and it is good to process those things and really acknowledge. And that's why that grieving process is there. That, you know, and I guess the point is that in the end, there has to be some realization that it is impermanent, and our real dependence is on God. But at the same time, yeah, of course, when you see something's not right, or you know, when people are going through, that's the heart of the Vaishnava, you know, because we see historically all the Vaishnava acharyas, they aren't like, well, this world is temporary, let's go back to God. But that's not their mood. They go out of their way. Like all of our acharyas, every single, if you study their lives, every single Vaishnava acharya has gone out of their way to help people in their lives, and in all kinds of ways. You know, sometimes they just, as Shyamala was mentioning yesterday, Sanatana Goswami was just a friend to people in so many ways. So that's the heart of the Vaishnava. Your heart is so soft that they want to help people in all kinds of ways, not just spiritually, but whatever way they can. So that's the real heart of the Vaishnava. But the Vaishnava understands that the ultimate benefit they can give someone is Krishna consciousness, of course. But they have a soft heart. So yeah, being a Vaishnava doesn't mean that we're gonna become hard-hearted and not think about the current realities of this point in time. And depending on one's nature and the service that Krishna wants them to do, yeah, they might try to help people in some material ways also, you know, and you know, they might protest against wars or whatever else that's going on crazy in this world, you know. And so that depends on the particular individual and the Vaishnava. But the foundation is that the Vaishnava understands that the highest benefit is if people can realize that we really have to depend on God, and this material world is temporary. Yeah, but we have to do it in a very compassionate manner, not in a dismissive manner, and not be the whole spiritual bypassing thing. Yeah, there were some thoughts. Any other thoughts? Do you have comments? Good. What else? Any other thoughts before we go? I do want to touch on the purport a bit actually, because the purport also has a lot. On this is anything else? But yeah, just to go over the purport a bit. You know, Prabhupada's making this point about cow protection in Brahminical culture. Anyone remember the qualities, the Brahminical cult of Brahminical culture that Prabhupada points out in the purport?
I remember the one that I don't really understand. Simplicity. It's like, I mean, I understand it theoretically, right?
Okay. So you're pretty simple for an American undergrad living in the ashram. It's simplicity, yes, there's that one. Anyone remember anything else? Any other qualities? You can say that.
We can't have a civilized society.
If you don't what?
Protect
those things, yeah. Cows, yeah. What are some other qualities? Yeah, Shantanu?
What is
equanimity? Just means being steady through ups and downs, basically. Forbearance literally means like forbear all the calamities that come normally. Tolerance, like forbearing, and standing strong and so forth. It's forbearing to the various stuff that happens. Yeah. Then there's also truthfulness was there, equanimity, sense control, forbearance, simplicity, general knowledge. That was very interesting. I was like, just being aware, I guess. And of course, then Prabhupada says transcendental knowledge. It's funny, growing up in India, we had a subject was called general knowledge, and we were forced to learn all kinds of general things about this world. and yeah, we learn all kinds of things. But yeah, just I think what it stands out for as is just being aware, being aware of what's happening, how people are doing, how people are feeling, and so forth, and not being totally just in your own world. And it's funny because people say, "Oh, you're spiritualist. You just are in your own world." But we can say the same thing about materialists. You're in your own world. You only think about yourself. So it's actually the spiritualist actually true spiritualist actually sees what's going on here.
I'm reminded of Srila Prabhupada's example on that point, transcendental and general knowledge. How, of course, when he was on the planet, like we mentioned yesterday, the most senior devotee at the time when he departed from the planet was 34 years old. Many devotees were like anywhere from the ages of 16 to 25. Many of them were hippies. They dropped out of societies. Up there, like aiming for that spiritual sky and just giving themselves to the movement. And it's significant. There's so many times when Srila Prabhupada just like grounds them down into the reality of like he's giving class and he sees that like someone is shivering in class. He goes to the temple president. Why is this devotee cold? Are there enough clothes to go around? Or is there a shawl? Do you have blankets? And are you taken care of? Or we spoke about yesterday how in Mayapur, the first thing he built was not a temple, but a home for the devotees, a guest house where the devotees could stay. Or also I think of when Srila Prabhupada was profoundly meticulous with all the checkbooks and all the finances and everything. And if even a few cents were missing and unaccounted for, immediately the GBC would be called to him or the temple president. Where is this money? This is Krishna's money. It cannot be wasted. So with finances and properties and timelines, schedules, being on time and making meetings, I'm just reflecting on that point that in Srila Prabhupada's time, sometimes the devotees would get a little too transcendental, we can say a little ungrounded in their service, and Srila Prabhupada would always, although he was operating from the highest platform, at the same time grounding them down, like, hey, we need to be careful, cautious, knowledgeable, aware about how to deal with the things in this world.
Just wanted to reflect on the point that it's personalism that we take care of things.
Yeah.
Like we have a temple car, it's actually a good state of, whereas our consciousness is the car clean? Is it well maintained? How do you treat the properties? Because it's all Krishna's energy, especially given here for our services. So all the paraphernalia of the service, like it's we're performing arati to Prabhupada or Tulsi Puja or Nitai, and arati plate is always clean, always polished, all the fresh articles there. So in the same way, it's all paraphernalia for worshippers in earth.
That personalism where transcendental doesn't mean that we don't think about people and our responsibilities. Transcendentalism means that we use everything in Krishna's service and value everybody as Krishna's devotee and really appreciate them. So, so the Brahmanical culture, it is so important to human civilization. Prabhupada was saying that even if a section of a society, if they just follow some Brahmanical culture, then the world can be saved. And so these qualities, they're important to cultivate, and they naturally get cultivated as we practice Krishna consciousness, as we just by the simple devotional service and japa and kirtan and so forth, and by eating prasadam, just by that actually these qualities arise: truthfulness, equanimity, sense control, forbearance, simplicity, general knowledge, transcendental knowledge. And I was thinking, today's world, the world needs leaders, these Brahmanas and Kshatriyas and so forth, who have these qualities. Wouldn't it be great to have leaders in society who have all these qualities, are able to act on that platform? Any other thoughts, questions?
That point you made about just by being a devotee we develop these qualities. There's a verse that also says that just by becoming Krishna conscious, we develop all the good qualities. But I guess I always wonder, like, don't we have to put effort into developing these qualities, or okay, we're just trying to be devotees, we're chanting around, so we're automatically going to be developing these qualities.
Thanks for pointing that out. Yeah, thanks for bringing it up because, for one, the worst of the week, I was thinking in that context how Krishna said with the lighting lamp of knowledge, right? There's a light shining lamp of knowledge is eradicating. It's giving in the heart. So in that sense, Krishna is the one who really cleans our heart and all these qualities rise. But at the same time, there is a process where many times Krishna points something out, and then we realize, maybe I should be more, truthful, forbearing, have more sense control. And so there is also some responsibility on our part where we have to really apply also. And Krishna cleans our heart in the sense that he could also do it in that way there where he makes us realize we don't have these qualities or we're not really applying them. And so because there's always free will. That's the point. There's always free will. You can always choose to be a jerk or not be a jerk or whatever. And Krishna never takes that away from us. And so it's true. We'll always have the responsibility. And at the same time, Krishna he's the one who can really clean our false egos. How we can only, we can pray to him, we can do devotional service, and he's the one who really cleans our heart. And then when he does that, then it's up to us to really acknowledge that, to start noticing, okay, how can I be more truthful? Now that we have risen above the modes, and Krishna has, cleaning our heart and becoming more transcendent goodness. And of course, also naturally happens also. It should naturally happen. The devotee starts saying like, oh yeah. First thing we see that in the Shishastanga also, the second verse, I believe, where Lord Chaitanya is just depressed. He's saying, even though Krishna's given all these names, I cannot chant. And even in the first verse, he talks about chanting. And of course, Lord Chaitanya always chant Krishna's names, but he's depressed. And the point over there that Lord Chaitanya is making is that when we start chanting, we realize, oh, actually, we're quite fallen. That we have all these things in our hearts. But it's good that we start noticing that, because the first step is we are totally, what's the word, unconscious incompetence. There's that. And then the next step is conscious incompetence. So realize, oh, we have all these misgivings, and let's try to make an effort to move forward, but also still rely on Krishna, because Krishna is the one really empowering us to be a devotee, to be a Brahmana, or whatever else. And so, last point. I just saw a clip yesterday. There's a nice guru, not ISKCON guru, someone outside ISKCON, and he said, sometimes his reels pop up on Facebook, and he says about it good things. Yesterday, I saw somebody asked him, "Oh, I'm not a Brahmana from a Brahmana family. Can I still preach Bhagavatam?" And he said, "Well, you can preach, you can share knowledge, but you cannot sit on the Vyasasana. You cannot, because you cannot represent Vyas, because you're not born from a Brahmana family." I was like, "Well, that's bogus." And so I was thinking these points Prabhupada's bringing up about this often. Speaking of Brahmanas, bringing persona. Prabhupada is bringing up this point that these qualities have to be cultivated, and especially if one becomes a Vaishnava, they're naturally a Brahmana. So it's not by birth. It's not that. It's actually by our effort, by our qualities that one is a Brahmana by, especially the truthfulness. But the Brahmana by their Brahmana means one who realizes Brahman. And what is Brahman? Brahman is what is true. And so, what is the true absolute truth? What is the true reality of this world? So Brahmana means to be able to see truth, to be able to speak truth, to be able to share truth with others. And when one does that, then they're a Brahmana. It does not matter where, which family they're born in. Anyway, I saw that yesterday and I saw this purport, so I thought I'd share. All right, I guess we'll end here unless there's some burning comments or questions. All right, Kantrashram Bhavatam ki Jai. Shariya Vidya Jodhpriya Tahika Jive Fele Vishaya Sangare Parmale Dibayati Lobama Surumati Take Jitaka Tina Samsare
Krishna Bharatoya Moy Kori Bhare Jiva Jai Swaprasadana Ilo Bhai Sena Mrita Radha Krishna Gundarao Premendra Kroche Tanya Nitai Jai Mai Jai Nitai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Go Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare
Jai Ho.